Welcome to another GTN Coaches Corner, where we answer all your coaching triathlon related questions. So if you have a question, leave it in the comments down below. Use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner or on any of our videos, and we'll answer your questions in a future episode. So we've got so many coming in, we better get to them.
We really do. So first one from Joel Baptista. I'm almost 15 with 10 years of swimming, which confuses me because their profile image looks very old.
Started swimming, yeah.
But it's pool swimming. Do you have any suggestion to help with sea monsters that appear in my head every time I try to swim in open waters? I think a lot of people can relate to this. Also, I'm a sprinter with not much endurance. So how can I improve my resistance to fatigue? I'm
intrigued. What do the sea monsters look like? Are they like sharks or like with tentacles? Must be something with tentacles.
Or barracuda.
Yeah.
Sea snakes.
Sea snake. Ooh. Jellyfish that you can't even see, but they can sting you. We're not helping much, are we?
No. Maybe it's a Loch Ness.
Oh, Loch Ness. Is that a sea monster? That's a river monster. Is that even a real monster?
I don't know.
Some people say it's real. Anyway, we're not helping at all, but we never said we were psychologists. No, in all seriousness, this is something that a lot of people deal with when they're dealing with open water. You get out there swimming, you used to a pool where you had a black line underneath you, and suddenly what you got underneath you is just black. And it's pretty scary. Anything could be under there. But the solution, the reality is that much like being scared of the dark when you turn off the lights in your bedroom at night, you know there's nothing really there that's going to hurt you. Your mind just runs away with you.
Unless you're swimming in False Bay in Cape Town.
Yeah, probably don't swim in False Bay in Cape Town.
And even then you might be okay.
Just don't swim in False Bay in Cape Town. Anyway, the point is that it's your mind that's running away with you, and there are techniques and strategies to control that. We would suggest you start swimming with a group that you can swim with and be near the whole time, someone who will look after you in the open water, just to get comfortable being out there. And you'll find that after a few swims, you actually do get quite comfortable. You stop thinking about it so much, it becomes less of a thing. You still might have a few flashes where you're like, and then you relax again and get back to your swimming. But if it is a repeated problem and you just can't get over it and you can't bring yourself to get out into the water, then in all seriousness, actually go and speak to a psychologist. They do have strategies and techniques that you can use to just control that wandering mind when you're out there and get you back to actually enjoying your swimming.
My tactic has always been swim faster. So
well, he doesn't have a problem with that because, as he says, his next question, he's a sprinter who struggles with endurance, so he could just use that sprinting to get away.
But honestly, I have. I've swum in Cape Town, and I've just swum as hard as I can.
It's hard not to think about it. Don't be first and don't be last.
But yeah, coming from a sprinting background, obviously you've got a bit of a task ahead of you because you need to shift your body into becoming a bit of an endurance machine. Currently you're used to just big bursts of short effort, and obviously you're now trying to spread that out and pace yourself better.
Yeah, it's basically training. It simply comes down to training. You've been training your fast twitch fibers and your short aerobic anaerobic energy systems for sprinting, and now you need to train those aerobic systems so that they can keep you going for a lot longer. And that basically just means doing longer intervals up near your threshold quite regularly, but not much above your threshold. In fact, we would suggest you do less than most people above your threshold because you're already coming from that background. You need to actually detrain that fast twitch fibers. You need to start training your aerobic system more. So do more longer, slower miles and some aerobic threshold work.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question though. Moving on now to one from Padmapara Kelkar. Hello coach, I attempted a middle distance triathlon in 2019 and I'm planning on attempting a full distance in 2022. I'm not entirely sure if this is a wise decision or not, but I want to take on the bet. Can you guide me to decide if this is the right decision or wrong? What factors should I usually consider when deciding to race a further distance or longer distance like this? And how many hours of training is required for a full distance triathlon?
Well, this is pretty normal, isn't it? The escalation in your goals. You start with a sprint distance, and then you want to do the longer one, and then you want to do the longer one, you do a half, and then, of course, the logical progression is to try a full. We completely understand, and it makes complete sense.
But the big thing to be aware of is the jump up from middle distance to full distance is quite considerable.
Yeah, it might be the biggest jump in triathlon. The differences in energy systems and training time that it requires is pretty massive. You don't have to do double what you did for your middle distance triathlon, but you probably do need to do about 1.5 times what you did, which is quite a lot of hours to fit into your week. It can be quite a challenge. The factors to consider whether it's worth it for you is basically, how much do you want it? do you really want it?
Which is big because when you're tired in the depths of that training, you need to really want it.
And it's also going to take quite a lot out of your life because the extra hours are free time, family time, that kind of thing that you have to commit to. You don't want to get halfway through it and really get to the race under-prepared. So do you really want to sacrifice that much of your life to get this Ironman medal? The answer might be yes, and brilliant for you if it is, but ask yourself that question before you do it. And then also, how much time do you have actually? Be realistic, because it is going to take more time than you've put in before. But it's a very worthwhile goal, and I think you might find that it's worth it for your lifestyle and everything. If you can fit it in and do it, it's a brilliant goal and very commendable to go for it.
Absolutely.
Just remember though, that you don't have to step up the distance just because you've now done a 70.3 or a middle distance race. You can aim to do another middle distance race, but just a bit faster with the same training, the same hours of training, but with better training. Or you could even go the other way entirely and go, well, I've done a middle distance now, but now I want to do a really fast sprint distance or Olympic distance. There's no rule that says once you've done a half distance, you've done it, ticked it off, put it behind you and do something longer, because basically you'd end up doing very, very long races.
We get this question quite a lot, actually. I think there's this continual drive for people to keep going further and further.
It's almost social pressure too, I think, that people have done a 70.3 and they go, so when are you going to try an Ironman straight away? And that's not necessarily necessary. You can have a lot of fun and a very rewarding career that you only ever do middle distance ones. You just do them better and faster and in new fandangled locations.
I never did an Ironman during my professional years of racing. The first one I did was here at GTN. So there we go. Right, great question though. Next one from Daniel Lemaire. Hello guys, I started triathlon about 9 months ago after being teased by a good Ironman friend. Really? Are they a friend then?
Is he a friend if he's teasing you?
Anyway, I completed my first sprint distance and I'm on course to my first Olympic distance by May next year, or I'm assuming this year. Anyway, which then I'll be moving my training to 70.3. Question: is there a minimum, if any, health check recommended before trying a longer distance race? I'm 41 years old and sometimes think that I might be pushing too hard without knowing.
Well, yeah, health checks. They're a bit like the terms and conditions on a product. Everyone knows they're there and they're there for legal reasons, but no one really pays attention to them. But you probably should. They are a good idea. If you start in a new training program or you increase in your mileage or your effort considerably, you should probably get yourself checked out before you do that. Even if you don't have any underlying conditions, they're a good idea to just make sure that maybe something that's undetected, a heart condition or something, is not there, that you're putting yourself at more risk. I mean, getting healthy and fit is probably the best thing, your single best thing you can do for your health. But if you have some underlying conditions that you don't know about, you could actually put yourself at more risk. So be aware of that and get a health check. Definitely is a good idea. We've seen the likes of Tim O'Donnell have a heart attack, and he was a professional athlete. It can happen to anyone. Getting a health check is not necessarily going to prevent any chance of a health problem, but it will limit the damage. So what we would say is, if you don't have any underlying conditions like high blood pressure or heart disease or arthritis or anything like that, then you can start moderate training. If you're going to jump into something really serious training, like straight into training for an Ironman or something, then visit your GP. Get a proper checkup. They will do a whole questionnaire and some physical checks, your blood pressure, etc., and make sure there's nothing that a red flag or any warning signs, and then they may request, or you can request, an exercise stress test. So they will put you on a treadmill or on an exercise bike. They will connect you up to an ECG where they can see your heart rhythms, and they will monitor you as you get pushed harder and harder and harder, monitor your breathing, monitor your heart rate, and make sure, again, that no red flags come up. There's no warning signs that you should investigate further or anything like that before you start this exercise program. It's a very good way to insulate yourself from any problems that might happen down the line. But again, like we say, there's no foolproof method completely. You're still slightly at risk, but you'll be at a lot less risk if you've headed to a GP and got yourself properly checked out before you start a program.
Yeah, and if for whatever reason you choose not to do this, or you do it and you get stuck into your training program, remember to listen to your body as well. That's really key. Always tell people that. I was very bad at doing this myself. But yeah, listen to your body. If you feel under the weather continually, numerous days back to back, that just feeling bit below par, then that's a good sign and something you should listen to. There are other devices out there that can track lots of metrics for you, such as your sleep, your HRV, that can also be telltale signs that your body is under stress and maybe you should back off. There's things like Whoop out there. A lot of smartwatches are tracking all sorts of data these days. They can be useful tools.
And if you do start it, whether you've had a health check or not, if there are any glaring symptoms that do come up, like faintness, shortness of breath, irregular heart rhythms, whatever, stop training immediately. It's not worth it. Go and get checked out by your doctor again, or for the first time if you hadn't been before. Don't keep pushing through that stuff, and don't ignore it and think, I'll be okay tomorrow, I'll be fine next week, whatever. This is just not worth it. Go and get yourself checked out.
All right, moving on to the final question. This is a bit of a nutrition question, really. It's from Philip Malks. Hi, GTN. I'm starting to focus on longer course racing, whether it's running or cross-country, marathon. Still a complete beginner trying to transition to triathlon. Recently working on my swimming. With longer distances, I still cannot figure out my nutrition. I have a generous meal before the session. I've tried all sorts of gels and chews, which give me enough energy during the workout, but about 20 kilometers in, or 40 to 50 kilometers on the bike, I struggle with feeling an empty stomach, which eventually slows me down. And also, the sooner I start refueling with gels and snacks, the sooner my digestion kicks in and I need some solid food. Is it just something to get used to? Thank you very much.
Well, you can't keep going if you're hungry. I mean, being hungry never slowed anyone down. Low blood sugar might slow you down, but you can keep going when you're hungry. In fact, I think there's a saying in the sled dog racing where hungry dogs run harder.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that translates to triathlon training, but it works for the sled dogs apparently.
It works for me for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Anyway, you can't expect your body to keep going forever with whatever fuel it's got. If you've got the right nutrition, you can keep going for longer. But I don't think what his issue here is actually nutrition.
No, and I know what you're about to say. I think it is a switch of energy sources, because we do have numerous different, 3 different main energy sources that we tap into. We've got ATP energy source, which is a very, very quick energy source that we typically tap into during very short bursts, intervals, sprints. I mean, it lasts at most between sort of up to around 30 seconds.
Your body's always got it ready to go. It's basically your fight or flight fuel, so you can sprint away from danger immediately, but it only lasts about between 10 and 60 seconds, and it's all gone. Then you switch over to glycogen. Now, glycogen is something that everybody has stored in your muscles and in your liver and even in your bloodstream to a certain extent, and you're going to burn through that. And depending on how trained you are, that could last up to 90 minutes, maybe even 2 hours if you're really well trained, but it won't last forever. And I think this is where the thing comes in, because there's one more fuel source, and that's fat. And everybody has enough fat, even if you're really lean like Mark here. You can still keep going for probably 2 days worth of fat, as long as you can keep your muscles going and you can keep oxidizing that fat. You got plenty of that stored, but the problem with this is it's a slow energy source. So I think what's happening to our reader here is that he is switching from his glycogen, which he has enough of, and he's taking in some fuel, but he's only using a little bit, and then he's running out of glycogen. And that point where he runs out of glycogen, you feel lousy. You can have a real bonk, a real down period. But your body will switch over to the fat oxidization. You may slow down a little bit, and then it'll kick back in with the fat oxidization, and you'll be able to go again. And I think maybe he's not pushing through that. He's going, I'm done. I can't go any further. He's not getting to the fat oxidization, or maybe he's not trained that at all in doing low and slow energy sessions, long, slow ones at a really low fat oxidization pace, and he's never trained that.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the training. I mean, you and I have done countless sessions and hours at that sort of intensity, and teaching our body to tap into that better, but also we've been through that process of switching from glycogen to fat, so we know how it feels, and yet it feels pretty lousy. You can feel pretty weird sometimes as it switches over, so it's teaching your body how to do that and better.
Yeah, your body will learn various things. It'll learn to start using the fat before the glycogen runs out. It'll learn to rely less on the glycogen that you've got stored, and also use some energy from your gut if you are eating and drinking regularly and you got your nutrition right. And then, like we say, it will learn to actually use that fat better and give you more energy from that. But you have to train it. How exactly you train it is, I think that's probably a video on its own, isn't it, Mark?
Well, yeah, and also this is worth pointing out. I know you're focusing, or the reader, the person sent the question in here, Philippe. You're focusing on longer distance stuff, but anyone out there that is focusing on shorter distance stuff, this isn't necessarily as important for you. And don't waste your time trying to switch over to fat oxidation, because you only need 90 minutes or 2 hours of energy, and focus on using that glycogen. So people get bogged down in this fat oxidation, but focus on what you need for what you're focusing on.
Yeah, and fat oxidation, what we're talking about here is not the only way to make you thinner. Your body will also break down fat that you have in it. After you've done 90 minutes of exercise and burnt out all your glycogen, your body will replace those glycogen stores by breaking down the fat that you've got. So you don't have to do long, slow stuff to get less fat, to get thinner. That's not how it works. We're talking about fuel sources here. We're not talking about storage of energy in your body. Like I said, we need to do a whole video on this.
This is a big, big topic, as you can tell. We're going around talking about all sorts of different stuff here. So yeah, I think we'll touch on this very soon. But that's a fantastic question, and I'm sure there'll be some more questions off of the back of this. So do drop them in the comment section down below using that hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. That's it for this week's GTN Coaches Corner. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.